Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining our fabulous webinar today. This webinar, for those of you who may not remember, is called Drag. And my drag story starts in high school. In fact, uh, I was in a high school play. You can see in the top left black and white photo, which I actually took a picture of from my high school annual, in a play called Quit, where I played a twin that was mistakenly by a rich old aunt thought that we were twin sisters. So there I am in my sister's prom dress. And at that time, it was the first time that I was ever on stage in drag. And it kind of opened my eyes, even though it was a comedy, in terms of the appreciation that people have for the art of drag. After that, I dabbled a little bit in, as you can see in the two pictures there with the shorter hair, in Halloween. And I had a serious Halloween party that year where I had my makeup done and had wig styled, and I had an actual change of outfits for the Halloween party. It was at my apartment, so it was easy to do. And I really realized then that I really do love the art of drag. And then that led to the next year. You can see on the bottom right-hand corner, and don't spend too much time looking at that picture, is the year that I hosted a birthday party for myself. It was no specific number. And it required everyone who came to the party to dress in drag. And that's where several of my friends' drag personas were born during that Halloween party. It was a lot of fun, had a great time. As you can see, I started out as a brunette, and even though that's my natural hair color, I feel like I looked a little too much like my sister. So, that birthday party makeup was rough. So we'll talk about the glow up a little bit later. So that party led to my friend who wanted, my friend discovered her drag persona during that party. And so that led to some random weekends out over the next couple of years where we've just really enjoyed going out. And it was one of those events that I looked forward to. I would sew the costumes, and we had a professional drag queen do our makeup, and we had a hairdresser do our wigs. We had so much fun with it. And as you can see in the middle picture, that pink outfit, I have a little story behind that one. I remember I was working a part-time job in addition to my day job, and I was running real behind on finishing that costume for the night. I ended up calling in sick that day from my day job at a retail store just to finish the costume. So my level of commitment to these evenings out was beyond. And as you can see here, blonde started to be my signature hair color. So after that, my friend decided that he didn't really want to do drag as much anymore. So I focused really in on Halloween. And it was kind of fun because the rest of my friends were always excited to see what the new look was going to be year after year. I made pretty much all of my costumes, and I started really practicing my own makeup and hair. And the most memorable was in the top right corner, you can see as the flight attendant. That was a party that I threw at my house, and we had several people invited, and we spent about a year. I planned that party, and I made all those costumes for all of the flight attendants. And since we were focused really on more of a vintage flight attendant look, we all selected names that would have been popular in more of a vintage time. So that's where the name Connie Taylor came from. So after that, I did have an opportunity. I was talking with a friend back in 2013 who knew a show director in Waterloo, Iowa. I'm from Minneapolis. And we planned for about a year that I was going to get an opportunity to perform when my friend was back in the country. So we did, and this was my very first time on stage performing, lip syncing as a, quote, professional drag queen. And I was hooked. I had so much fun. As you can see, I did about 5 numbers, and I was the featured guest from Minneapolis. So I really had a blast with that. That then led to performing, since I got the performing bug, led to performing in a local bar here in Minneapolis for amateur nights. And these are some of the pictures of me performing. And you know, I've won actually more times than not while I've been up there performing. And I've really built a great network of drag sisters. And as you can see from the video, Connie is really more about connecting to the audience versus doing the death drops and the splits and any of those tricks. I don't think, you know, my insurance would allow that. So, but currently, you know, the bar is closed due to COVID with no real immediate plans to open. So Connie needs to find a stage. But in the meantime, Connie has gone to work. So as you can see from this photo here, I had the opportunity to bring Connie to work with Wells Fargo. And in June of 2018, Connie was the very first drag queen to ride the stagecoach in the Twin Cities Pride. Now, Davita's gonna come up later and she's gonna tell you that she was the first. We'll just debate that one. But it was a wonderful opportunity and I had so much fun. And as you can see, you know, connecting with the kids, they just had such a blast, taking a ton of photos. Unfortunately, we didn't have the stagecoach in 2019, but we still were able to go ahead and march in the parade and still connect with kids. As you can see on the bottom right, this baby's first drag queen was so cute when his aunt brought him up to me and wanted a picture. So unfortunately, we didn't have a parade, of course, this year in 2020. So Connie's obviously looking forward to next year. So as you can see, the glow up, as we call it, from where you started to where you are now is real. So these are some photos of Connie's favorites. Just as a reminder, I do make about 90% of my own costumes. That's part of the excitement for me and the fun is the whole creation and pulling it all together. As you can see, pink is my favorite color and a signature color for Connie. And I'm mostly blonde, sometimes pink hair now or lighter colors, no more dark. Dark doesn't work for me. So that's Connie in a nutshell. So let me now introduce you to Jezebel.
Well, hello, I am Jezebel Patel. These first set of photos were very active in theater when I started in San Francisco. I wrote scripts for local theater companies. And being in drag was mostly coincidental because one of the actors showed up during a reading and the director wanted me to step in. And I was casted for the script that I wrote, and my character was a ditzy flight attendant who was very obsessed with Rainbow Bright, and that was her character. She was an official drag queen during that time. Jezebel was just trying to see how it would go. It wasn't more of a drag queen, it was more of a suspiciously large woman. And I've learned a lot from just following YouTube videos, and that started it all. So right after that year, right after that season of the play, one of the directors in the theater company introduced me to GAPA, that's Gay Asian Pacific Alliance in San Francisco. And they have an annual fundraiser, and I competed for that fundraiser. It's a pageant for drag queens, both professional and starting as a drag queen or a drag baby, and also for drag kings. And during that year, I competed and I won. It was not a traditional pageant. It was very comic, and it was a very good experience for me. You know what they say, if you don't succeed the first time, simply pretend it never happened. And that's what it was. And it was a really good nonprofit to support. I was invited to help raise funds for the GAPA Foundation for that year. We raised funds for educational grants in San Francisco. We also supported nonprofit allies who were very involved with GAPA. And ever since then, I've been very active with that organization. This was my award-winning talent. This was during the time that the Black Swan movie was out, and I wanted to do a fun interpretation of it. This was called The Dying Swan. And as you can see, the feathers are slowly withering and she is slowly dying. And by the end of this performance, she's dead. And then after GAPA, I was introduced to the Imperial Court of San Francisco, which I also competed for Miss Gay San Francisco during that year. That was a very big moment in my drag life. Part of my responsibilities were to help raise funds for the court. Me and the Empress during that year definitely worked out all of the nonprofits that we have in San Francisco. By the end of our reign, we donate all of those to the nonprofits and the charities who have been part of the Imperial Court over the years. That also involved me to travel and visit other courts in California and other states and help them raise funds for their own courts, which was very, very nice. I got to meet a lot of reigning empresses, other Miss Gay other Miss Gay title holders in other states, not just in California. So after my my Miss Gay San Francisco, I tried to still be in the pageant world, and that was Miss Gay America. This was the evening gown that I wore for that pageant. It took us a week to stone the dress. So I had a really good team of friends and drag family members who were helping me put this look together. That photo shoot was done at a grocery store. It was more of a creative way of showcasing Jezebel Patel as we competed for Miss Gay America California, Miss Gay America California that year. After my reign, today, as part of my advocacy, I am in literature. I wrote a children's book, and that's the book right there. It was published in 2016. Ever since then, I was very active with Drag Queen Story Hour. I visited local schools in our community. I went to neighbor cities as well. We were reading books to children. The goal was to make books and reading look cool again. And so what we did was we wrote a book that was relatable to kids and also to kids who are still, to adults that are still kids at heart. So that was a very good adventure. Okay, so today, after all of those, what I've been doing is I've been hosting. So I've been a host for the GAPA pageant, the Gay Asian Pacific Alliance, for 6 years now. I have also hosted and have been a judge for the Miss Gay San Francisco pageant. Aside for that, I've been hosting virtual meetings, whether it's for Wells Fargo, it's also for other nonprofits, other companies who have been reaching out to us for Zoom bingos and other events for families and friends families who have been a fan of Jezebel Patel. So that's what I've been very active with for now. And that is Jezebel Patel for you. Let me introduce you to my other co-host, Miss Rhoda.
Can you hear me now? Is this thing on?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm Rhoda Manhard. I hail
Rhoda's having.
from Chicago. I am what you would occasional drag. So I am honored to be on this panel with my 3 other drag sisters. They have illustrious drag credentials, but drag was sort of thrust upon me. I'm a singer with the Chicago Gay Men's Chorus, and we put on fully staged book musicals. And a while ago, I auditioned for a male role, and I was cast in a female role. I was a little perplexed. I hadn't really done drag before, except for maybe Halloween. But I took the challenge on, and Rhoda was born. What you're looking at now, these photos come from part of CGMC's mission, which is to enrich the community. So this was a fundraising event for, I believe, the AIDS Foundation of Chicago. And the number is Color My World from Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Say, Rhoda, we're not able to see your screen right now if you want to share.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let's try again. How about now?
There you go.
Don't know why that happens. We love this technology. So Champions was another show where I started to realize that I could draw strength from my drag character. So Michael's more of an introvert and Rhoda is an extrovert. She's gregarious and assertive. Drag is transformative. And Rhoda is Michael, but some of the best parts of Michael with all those inhibitions taken away. So in this next slide, this was the performance of the song, What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger. And I was playing a woman who was overcoming an obstacle. And at the same time, I was facing an obstacle of my own. I had to do my very first presentation in front of an executive committee for my line of business. Performing or presenting in front of executives or large crowds like this one always caused me high anxiety. I felt like you could see my heart pounding in my chest. You could see my hands shaking. Lots of times I would just freeze up. I'd forget the words. Well, this time I stood in front of the board and took a deep breath. And I said, what would Rhoda do? How would Rhoda deliver the message? And I have to tell you, it was an extraordinary event for me. It was very successful. And from then on, I really drew from Rhoda when I was in situations that were anxiety ridden. I would say, what possibly would she do? Now, at this summit, you're gonna hear a lot of people say, bring your authentic self to work, and you must. I really implore you, it's very important to be authentic at work, but I say bring your whole self to work. And what I mean by that is be vulnerable, come out, tell about your experiences, what makes you different, because our differences are what makes us strong and actually more relatable. So at work, I'm kind of seen as a taskmaster. You know, as soon as I open the meeting, I'm ready to hit the agenda, where some of my other people that I work with start off with positive moments. They find out how someone else is doing and all that sort of thing. But it wasn't until I brought Rhoda to the workplace and I told people that I did drag that I was actually able to connect with them on a different level. So now my coworkers feel free to joke with me and tell me stories about their lives. So I will leave you with this. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable at work, because it makes you real. No one's perfect. And with that, I will turn you over to my drag sister, Davida Loca.
Hi everyone, Davida Loca here. Thank you for staying all the way through to the grand finale. My name is Davida Loca. Davida was born and created back in 2014 for a fundraiser called Best in Drag Show. It's a fundraiser for a nonprofit called Alliance for Housing and Healing, and they raise money for people living with HIV and AIDS. So a lot of people kind of build up to what their drag aesthetic looks like. And for me, I kind of started, I feel, right at the top. I had a whole team put me together head to toe. I had an idea, I had a concept. This year, Davida Loca was an intergalactic alien beauty queen who crash landed in Roswell, hence she was Miss New Mexico that year. She didn't win this fundraiser, so it's set up very much like Miss America. There's an opening dance number, a swimsuit, talent portion, question and answer, and then an evening gown. I came in fourth out of the six, but it was such an amazing experience, and what we do is really reach out to the community and engage. You know, there is a winner at the end of the show, but you don't win anything but a plastic crown that you get to put on top of your head. Then you come back next year for your final walk. So after that year, they asked me to come back and continue to help out with the fundraiser. So they called us dogs. And so if you guys have seen RuPaul's Drag Race, the Orpheum Theater, we sell at the Orpheum Theater every year. And we run up and down the stage collecting donations, letters. We pass them up to the celebrity judges that are there. They read them out on stage, and it's a full production. It's a full show, and it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work in between that. Hence why they call us dogs. In between, They've asked me to do a couple different hosting events. You can see I did a little Christmas thing. I've been parades. And then on the bottom right-hand corner, you kind of see me in the background as a boy, and then in the background as, you know, in full drag. So that way you can kind of see from start to finish what that day looks like. And on production day, it's about a good 16-hour day. You're getting there at 6 in the morning and not leaving till almost near midnight, depending on how the show goes. So because of my community involvement, so the Alliance for Housing and Healing raises money for people living with HIV and AIDS. And because of my community involvement, I was able to share that information with my company, with Wells Fargo, and they were able to recognize me and not only support me, but really encourage me to continue on persisting. So I know Miss Connie Taylor had said that she was the first drag queen to ride the Wells Fargo Stagecoach in June of 2018. This is me riding the Wells Fargo Stagecoach in May of 2018 in Long Beach. I was Volunteer of the Year, and that was a way that they were able to, one of the ways that they wanted to recognize me for the amazing work that I did. Because of becoming Volunteer of the Year, they gave me a couple different grants from the Wells Fargo Foundation that I was able to turn around and deliver to the Alliance for Housing and Healing. And that year we raised $540,000 in one night. After that year, the nonprofit decided that not only am I a very good drag queen and volunteer, but they kind of nudged me. At the same time, I decided that I wanted to go back since I didn't get a crown the first time and compete again. And so I came back in 2018 as Miss Washington, Damsel in Distress, and you can see me in my armor that I have behind me. And I was a princess fighting for her kingdom and looking for her knight in shining armor. The metaphor behind that was that we're fighting for our kingdom. The Alliance for Housing and Healing, they are raising money for people who don't have a home. And so my message behind that character is I'm fighting for people who don't have a home. You can see at the bottom right left-hand side of the screen, I had the different looks that I had that year. In becoming the Volunteer of the Year that year, I got to meet the head of our community banking, Mary Mack, and she was so amazed by performing in drag, being able to be vulnerable and sharing that with work and the community. She was very interested, and she said, hey, after the show is done, I want you to reach out to me and let me know how it was. And I thought it was kind of one of those like, oh, let's keep in touch kind of things. I sent her the picture anyways, and she emailed back within about like 5-10 minutes. Oh my God, you look amazing. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. And it really was that sense of belonging of I get to work for an amazing company that supports my initiatives, and those initiatives help out the community. So for me, it all comes full circle. I didn't win that year. There's a little drag controversy behind that. I lost to a piñata. But if you want to know a little bit more about that, just reach out to me and I'll tell you directly.
All right. Thanks, Davida. I'm not so sure I agree with your timeline, but we'll just let that go for now. So each of us has had a very different background, as you can hear, excuse me, that has brought us to drag. And each of us has found a way to use those experiences to help us further our leadership skills. So let's spend just a few minutes talking about successful leaders. So there are many resources that you can go to find qualities and traits of a successful leader, right? You can books, there's seminars, there's TED Talks, and you can even Google. And this list that we pulled together here is just a simple Google list, right? I found it on several of the sites that I went to. And, you know, these are just a short list. Of course, there's many, but these tend to be some pretty common ones, right? Leaders need to have a vision. As they're leaders, as they're leading people, they need to have a vision to take someone somewhere, a group, a team, an organization. They need to be creative in terms of how they, they get there. They need to execute on that vision. And then they need to be able to have some good MC and public speaking skills, as well as more often than not, to be successful as a leader, you need to have some sort of finance or budgeting skills, maybe some project management to get things done. and some organization. You certainly need to have confidence as a leader, and you need to constantly be improving. So given that, there are some successful drag skills that you need in order to be a successful drag performer. So we're going to kind of break some of these down a little bit here. Oops, we just lost the screen there, Rhoda. But we're going to break these skills down, and we'll do that and talk through a little bit about the skills that it takes. So if you, oops, there we go. We're going to get back there just a moment. In the meantime, should we perform a number while we wait for the, I'm just kidding. We have nothing prepared. That's not true. All drag queens always have a number in their back pocket.
We're pretty. We're pretty. We don't need to be technologically savvy. It's okay.
Exactly. All right. So we'll talk first. I'll talk first about vision. So with a vision, when you think about this, as a drag performer, you have to have a vision, right? You have to have a vision in terms of everything from what is your drag persona going to be? Are you going to be a sassy queen? Are you going to be a beauty queen? Are you going to be a comedy queen? You need to have a vision of how you want to represent yourself, right? And then in terms of your outfits and your hair and your makeup and your costumes and your jewelry, you have to have a vision for all of that, right? And with that vision, you know, you start out in the beginning with this vision, you need to then be able to creatively execute on that. And so one of the things that I mentioned earlier is, you know, I make about 90% of my costumes. So with that, I am able to take a vision that I have and create the costume out of it. And I know, Davida, you have a great example of executing. And in the meantime, maybe you can try to pop the screen. It's not sharing at this point.
Yeah, so talking about starting from a vision and then being creative, you know, I got to be fortunate enough to work with an entire team of people that I said, hey, I want this wig. Boom, they got it done for me. I want this outfit. Boom, they got it done. But I always paid attention to learning how their creative process worked. And eventually I went from being able to just stand there and they threw it all on me to be able to do everything from outfits, making jewelry, doing my own makeup and all that. The next on my to-do list is learning how to style my own wig. This was not done by me, but I will get there just like everything else. But being creative doesn't have to necessarily be expensive. You know, if you can see these earrings, I don't know if our Zoom quality is good enough, but they're very expensive. And so when I went with my friend and we were looking for jewelry for one of our performances, you know, these were, you know, a couple $100s. And he picked up 2 plastic 99-cent jalapeno peppers, put a hook on it, threw it in his ear, and he was done. I was out $200, he was out $2, and he got more attention for the creativity and then the vision that he wanted to create for himself. So creativity doesn't necessarily have to be expensive. It's all about the learning process and being able to deliver the vision that you're trying to create.
So
Might have lost Connie for a second.
Connie?
Well, I guess we were talking about creativity. The next on the list is execution and emceeing skills. Might take a second to get Connie back, but who was on point for execution? I actually think it was Connie who was going to talk about that. So maybe we move forward to MC skills and public speaking.
Sure. And just to add to what Connie was supposed to say and what Davida was saying, you know, being creative, really channeling your artistic side and being able to really come up with an idea and execute. That's what the drag queen skill is. I've always believed that there are really no ugly drag queens, just lazy ones. And if you need to put in a little bit more effort, that really makes you stand out compared to others.
Absolutely. And then about emceeing and public speaking, you know, part of my story earlier was when, you know, you need to go out there and it's not only about the confidence and that you need to connect with your audience, but you have to have a story and you've got to be able to command and understand the audience and connect with them. And that's part of being authentic as well. So, you know, definitely overcoming the fear for me of public speaking was a big deal. But once that was behind me, it was the idea of knowing your purpose and why you're there. And part of emceeing and public speaking is that you have a vision, you have a message that you have to give, and you know your audience, you connect with them on that level. So
yeah, and just to connect that to our work lives, whether you're on or off stage, you strategically would want to do research on your audience. You would want to be more prepared so that if you are asked questions, you have a full presentation that's well controlled. And when I say control, you have to control your audience, whether it's in a professional setting or in a drag show or when you're on stage. So you need to keep the flow going. You need to also make sure that they're well entertained and they have something that they can bring back as they leave your meeting. So it's definitely well controllable, and being in drag, it has definitely brought that persona out of me. So when I'm presenting, it's not a wig, it's probably a really fancy tie, but you're still on stage and you still have an audience.
Yeah, that's very true, Jezebel. And when you think about it too, it's really ties into some of these other skills that we're going to cover here. So let's actually go to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about finance and budgeting here. So as I was mentioning before, I somehow lost my Zoom, so I apologize. I took a quick break. But I'm like an example of the financing and budgeting skills, right? So there's a lot of outfits that I make, and you know, I can make them on a dime, right? And to Davita's example of her friend that, you know, bought $2 chili peppers, right? And had great attention from that, that's awesome. And so you need to be able to find a way. They always say, you know, it costs a lot of money to look this cheap. Well, it also, you can spend a lot less money sometimes and look very glamorous and very elegant just by reusing things, mixing things up, and, you know, finding the beauty in even some common household items, right? So it's definitely something that as a drag professional, you need to be completely mindful at all times. And Jezebel, I think you have a great example too of like project management.
This came in very handy when I was joining pageants actively, and working on a budget on a professional setting has helped me come up with a budget for the show. It's definitely a lot of recycled costumes, jewelry, wigs, and having the really good partnership from people who have been going through a lot of the pageant system or world altogether. So you're maximizing your budget, but you're also utilizing the help or the previous outfits or the previous looks. Very similar to on a professional setting, you're utilizing ideas and you're utilizing equipment or materials that have been used previously, but have been very effective for the audience or the leadership team that you are doing the presentation for. So it's very similar to the pageant world. You have a budget to begin with, you stick with it, you maximize it, you work with the people who have done it before.
And then in organization, I think, Davita, you had a great example about organization as well, right?
Yeah, so like I shared, when I started my drag kind of ideas, I was fortunate to work with the team. And, you know, every year, this fundraiser that we do are a bunch of amateurs. We have no clue what, most of us have no clue what we're doing. But we have a large support network that kind of helps and guides us to what we're supposed to be doing. So for an example that I have is this year, we have one of our contestants who's never done a drag performance before, but has amazing talent because he used to travel with his high school. And so we're really excited to see that on stage. He knows how to deliver that as a boy, but as a drag queen, it's completely different. So I had to kind of give him an outline to say, hey, what are your ideas? What are your concepts? Okay, now that you have that general idea, let's break it down from head to toe. What does your opening number look like? What color wigs do you have? What jewelry are you wearing? And break it down in small little achievable goals that he's able to be able to step back and say, oh my God, I have an entire runway of outfits to be able to look at, but it all started off with his idea, and then being able to step back and then putting all that on paper to be able to create a well-organized plan of his vision.
So, and somebody mentioned in the chat about planning that flight attendant Halloween party for a year required a lot of organization. Yes, it did. It was a year-long project, that's for sure. And I had a lot of people I had to help wrangle in to make sure that we had all the supplies and all the props that we needed. But it was so much fun. And I can go on and on about that one, but I won't. So let's talk a little bit about confidence. Now, this is the one thing that all of us will speak to in terms of the confidence that you need as drag kings or drag queens, just drag performers in general, dressing many times in another character or another gender. You're really putting yourself out there. And so it really requires some confidence. And you have to be confident to be successful. If you've ever gone to an amateur show and you see a drag performer up there who doesn't have any confidence, it's very apparent on stage. And we all start out, not being that confident, and then you build that confidence as you go forward. And that's what makes those drag performers people that you want to go back and see time and again. You're drawn many times to that confidence. And as a leader, those leaders that are confident, when you're working with a leader in an organization, you're drawn to those confident leaders more than you're drawn to a leader that doesn't exude confidence. So much more comes with that. And then the constantly improving, right? And so I'll share my thoughts on this, and then I'll ask the other gals to open up and share their thoughts on both confidence and process improvement. You have to reinvent yourself all the time. You never start out on stage looking the way we look today, right? All of us have had our time and our effort putting in to our drag. And I was the only one old enough to show those real early pictures of where I looked a little bit ratchet, but that's okay. So you can see there is what we call this glow up that we talk about. And the first time you're not polished and you're not successful, right? You continue to evolve and transform. And as leaders, you have to constantly be continuing to evolve and transform as leaders. So other gals, I want to open it up to you for some thoughts on.
If I may, sometimes the best creations happen in the limbo between control and chaos. And just to connect your confidence and the improvement and the project management that we were talking about, it's really learning on how to harness the energy that can help us succeed all together. And I think that's where the confidence really comes from. And it's succeeding over the unscripted moments of the preparation, all of those. I like what you were talking about, how reinventing yourself, because you really would want to not only stick with a specific look, because if people constantly see that, even in a professional setting, if people constantly would know that you're going to go for a PowerPoint presentation, then they may probably be on phones, or they would probably expect other things. So you would want to really reinvent, have a different type of creative outlet, and restructure your persona if needed. And that brings out a different type of confidence altogether.
You get bored real quickly. If you do the same things, same numbers over and over, the same presentations over and over, people get bored real quick. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of a support network. So when you think in terms of support network, folks, in your day job, your corporate environment, your manufacturing, your government environment, whatever you're in, everyone talks about the importance of having a mentor, or having a best friend at work, or really having some sort of a support network, even be it your family that supports you in terms of what you do. Drag requires the same thing. And sometimes, as we've talked about, it's critical to your success to have that support network. You need the support of people who will not only support you in helping pull things together, but the audience and your regular supporters who come to see you and cheer you on, and all of those things. I mean, support network is really understated when you think about it, but it's something that you have to learn to build, very much so. And there's very little support. There's family. We talk about drag families as an example. I have a drag daughter that when in the drag community, when you put somebody in drag for the first time, they become your drag daughter and you become their drag mother, right? So I've done that. I've even got the opportunity to put my straight cisgender trainer into drag. So he's now officially my drag daughter. And so it's a great family that you can build up. And I think, you know, Jezebel, you have your Imperial Court support network, and Rhoda, you have your theater family. So share a little bit about that.
Well, I can talk a little bit about so the fact that I just do this occasionally means that I have a dressmaker, someone a costumer, there is someone applying my makeup, there is somebody putting my boobs and hips in and all of that stuff, where really when you're in a company, you have to focus on your role, your motivation, your characterization, and performing. But I will say this when it comes to work and how I bring this skill to the workplace, is that it taught me to ask for help. Nobody should try to take the entire job on themselves. First of all, collaboration is really what the support network is about. You want to take the people who are either on your team or your peers or your mentors and bring them into your projects the same way that we do when we get ready for a performance, when we get dressed up. It's really translates quite clearly that it takes a village to make this. And you do that at work too.
All right. So we have plenty of time for questions. If folks want to post some questions in the chat, we can do that. In the meantime, I did see one question that came up that's just recent, and we'll have to scroll back to look for more. But there is a question about thoughts on why drag stars are beloved, but trans women don't receive the same love. Curious to hear our perspectives on this. There's clearly different identities, but still a disconnect in the acceptance and appreciation. So I'll tell you this, from the community, drag community that I'm involved in, there are a lot of trans women that are in drag, and they're amazing. And you'll probably find this in any community. At the community level, they are revered. They are well respected. They are professional in their craft. It's unfortunate that in the more mainstream media, they're not as well respected as some of those, for example, the RuPaul drag stars. Now we love the RuPaul, what he's done for drag is amazing to bring it to mainstream. I think that, you know, personally, I feel there's an opportunity for that venue to really expand into more of the trans women drag performers, because they are absolutely amazing. And there's a whole entire pageant dedicated to that, the Continental pageant, where I mean, they're just, I used to go to those pageants like all the time back in the, a few years ago, and I was just amazed and blown away every single time. So I'm curious as to, you know, Davida or Jezebel or Rhoda in your markets, thoughts about the trans women in drag.
Yeah, so for me, I think my idea, my concept of drag is a show. It's a production. It's an idea and a creative outlet that I want to be able to deliver out to the community. When I step out on stage, when I step out on the streets, after the session, I plan to get a Red Bull from down the street, so I'm going to be looking like this. But I know that I'm calling attention. I know that there's something that I'm going to get from the way that I look. And I think that's where a little bit of that difference is between someone being transgender. They're not really wanting to call out attention for who they are. They're just trying to be who they are. And again, this is my opinion. And I'm making a stance from the drag point, is I'm going out there for that attention for a specific purpose. I don't know what it's like to have to step out in the world and have to tell somebody, hey, this is who I am. You might have thought I was living my life a different way, but this is really who I am on the inside. I don't have that experience, but I know from being in drag, I'm doing it for the production value.
I mean, altogether, our trans community definitely needs representation.
Absolutely.
Before RuPaul came up with RuPaul's Drag Race, a drag queen has also not been perceived as fabulous or quite the performer. I remember when I had my friends in the beginning of my drag career, as you can say, were thinking that I was cross-dressing or I was just wearing women's clothes because I thought it was comfortable for me and that's what I wanted. But before they officially accepted me as a drag performer and accepted me as someone who wants to be on stage to do hosting or shows. So I think since we had that outlet and we were able to showcase that, I think acceptance, knowledge, and also representation would be very good for our trans. My Mr. Gay and all of my Imperial Court have both our trans community for both trans women and trans king men, and I love them. And I feel like they deserve the same representation as we do.
And I saw a comment in there too in the chat about just gender in all forms of drag. And I just want to make a comment about that. There's in my community in particular, especially in a lot of the amateur nights, there are a lot of cisgender women performing in drag because it's really about a performance. It's about the idea of presenting and performing and the art of creating. And we have a lot, and I think it's great. We have cisgender male performing in as a male in drag. We have kings, we have drag queens, we have transgender drag kings, we have transgender drag queens. It's about everything, and it's really expanded the definition of drag. I tell you, a lot of folks that have come to the shows are just blown away and surprised at how we've really expanded the definition of what drag really is. And
Yeah.
Great.
And Connie, if I may add, there was a comment from Chelsea, and I acknowledge that, and I also believe that our trans community are actually the mothers of drag. They have started this many years before we do, and it's just now more comfortable for us to do this thanks to them.
So I saw a couple of questions in the chat about how we build our confidence and how we tie that back to work and that sort of thing. And I just had two quick comments. And I'm going to steal a line from RuPaul. Everyone's probably heard before, but we're all born naked and the rest is drag. And so every day that you get up and you go to your and you decide what you're going to wear, that's your drag. And that's how you bring that to the workplace. So know who you're going to be meeting with that day, or what customer you're going to be talking to. And that drives the decision of what your look will be. And then finally on confidence, there's only three things that you need to know about confidence. And that's rehearse, rehearse, and rehearse. And so you need to know your stuff. You need to do the work. And eventually the confidence will come along with that. We all get stage fright occasionally, I'm sure. You know, my sisters here are all wonderful performers. Every time I hit that stage, I feel like I'm gonna pass out until I start performing. It just takes time. And those are the qualities that you need in the workplace. Make sure you are prepared when you go into that meeting and when you have to go for an interview, know about the company that you're going to, know the questions that you want to ask before you get in there. It's all about being prepared. So back to the studio.
I love that, Rhoda.
There was a question that I saw that popped up asking if drag has impacted our dating world, and how if someone perceives us a different way because we do drag. I know that I have firsthand experience in this, you know, and probably some of you guys might as well. You know, when you're wanting to get to know somebody, we're in 2020 in the digital age. The first thing they do is ask, what's your Instagram? And if you go on my Instagram, you're gonna see David and you're gonna see Davida and you're gonna see everything else in between. I don't really hide a lot of what I do because I'm very proud of the work that I do in drag as a boy when I'm managing a branch. And so what you see is what you get. And some people do kind of feel turned off by that. You know, and I mean, this is my studio. So I mean, you're walking in and you're seeing that. So there's not really any hiding, but I'm not trying to hide who I am or what I do. And the way that I kind of see it, if they have an issue, or if they have, you know, something that they're really too fond of because I do drag, then it's just not a fit for me. I'm not going to stop helping out my community because this is what I love doing and I love how I get to do it.
I like that too. If I may use that as a segue, I think being in drag, the more chances of you getting re-invited for a performance or a hosting or nonprofit events is because you have a purpose. You have a purpose for yourself and you know what your intentions are. And you know, the motivation comes from working with that you care about. It also comes from people that you care about. So I personally would want to continuously be out there to raise funds for not only my Asian family, but also for the Imperial Court and all the charities. So I get to constantly be doing so. And I think that's what your reason, have a purpose, find out what your motivation is, and it will be reflective of how you present yourself altogether.
And just to touch on, you know, when someone had mentioned how does drag help us out in the workforce, you know, for me and a lot of my drag friends, we joke around, you know, that we really ended up becoming the men that we are by putting on a pair of heels. You know, it takes a lot of courage to be able to do this in front of an audience, in front of a large crowd. And for me, being able to realize that I'm the same person got to really push me out of my comfort zone and really show the world what David is capable of doing. This is just, like Rhoda was saying, a different facet of David, you know, a little bit more shinier with bigger hair.
You know, and to tag along to that, you know, I think like for me personally, coming out at work and
All right, guys, I think we're having some technical issues. Bear with us.